I was born 1931, so I was 5 when it was the coronation, but I remember Edward VIII abdicating. We all sat round the radio listening.
It was wireless.
The wireless, yeah, of course
we didn't have radios then.
We didn't have radios,
it was
wireless.
Put wireless on. When they played the national anthem, my dad made us stand up.
Yes.
In the house. The king died while I was in the army, yeah. We all had to go to some church in North Wales, we all had to go on church parade when the king died. That'd be 1952. I got demobbed probably 6 or 8 weeks or something like that after the king died.
What I can remember mostly was going to the pictures, to the Rialto, because they had a newsreel running as well. And when the king died, I remember the Queen coming back. The plane pulled in on the runway and she came down the steps on her own and she looked so sad. She was all in black.
The day we started school, we had to cycle to school. About 10 children off the Moss all travelled together on the bikes, and then we all went to different houses and parked our bikes there on Lord Street. One day we came out of school and the lady where we were leaving our bikes, she says, come and look at this. And she'd got the tiniest television you can imagine. And it was the funeral of the Queen's father. That was the start of it. It was strange because we'd never been to the cinema, we'd never seen moving pictures. You'd got books and things, but you'd never seen a picture moving, and we couldn't understand why these objects on the screen didn't fall to the floor with them being moving. They're not obviously static on a picture. We just couldn't grasp a television at first.
At the time of the coronation, I was living in Padgate at home. The day began with the delivery of the morning newspaper, which revealed that the British climbing party had reached the summit of the previously unconquered Mount Everest, the world's highest mountain. It was a wonderful present for the Queen to receive on her coronation day.
Remember the coronation growing up as a teenager? I saw a bit of it on the TV, yes. Black and white, big console type TV. Used to work off a coat hanger. You didn't need an aerial. When it was passed on to us and we eventually had to buy a new one, we had to buy an aerial as well. The new ones will work off a coat hanger.
We lived in First Street then and went over to Mr Brooks's, and there was 12 of us crammed in the little front room with this television, 12-inch screen, black and white, and it was on for hours and hours.
Lived in a little 2 up and 2 down, and I just remember we went down to the bottom of the street to look at the only television that was in that street.
Yes, again, there was just one television in the street. I think the parents must have known, obviously, in advance that this was going to happen, and they sort of hoarded a little bit of sugar, a little bit of tea. So while we sat watching it, 1 or 2 of the grown-ups were brewing up for everybody. We got a chocolate biscuit. And then later on again, we had the street party. I mean, I was 18, so I finished up helping with the brewing up rather than watching all of it. But certainly to see something as it was actually happening, rather than going to the cinema and seeing it later, it seemed like magic to know that you were watching something hundreds of miles away as it was taking place. Yeah. That, I think, was the most thrilling thing for me. Certainly everybody enjoyed themselves. We had races. I think we spent more time giggling and laughing and falling over than pushing than actually racing. But the parents didn't seem to bother. It just seemed to be one of those days where you've been brought up fairly strictly all your life and they just left you to it. It was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
I have slept on the Mall. But I wasn't the only one, and everybody was doing the same thing. We were just talking and laughing and carrying on. It was just all go all the time. Oh, and I loved every minute of it. coming home and I'm walking up Clarendon Road, I think, like this. I was exhausted, absolutely exhausted, but all I kept saying was, I'd do it all again. I'd do it all again. I couldn't open the door. I was so excited because I'd done so much to see her and to see what was going on, which, you know, you didn't do it in my time. Yeah. They all thought I was mad. My friends, they thought, you know, and I'm thinking, what do you want to do that for? And they didn't say, you shouldn't be doing it. They just thought it was beyond them and didn't want to do it, whereas I was doing it, full stop. And that was it. I was going to do it, and I did it.
Her dress was so special. It was absolutely beautiful. It was embroidered with the emblems of England, Scotland, Ireland and Wales. We went to Rhyl on our honeymoon, beginning of July, and while we were there, the Queen and Prince Philip were doing a tour of the United Kingdom, and they came to Wales, and all the soldiers were lined up on the street, crowds and crowds of people there. And Cliff took a photograph of them in the car as they went past.
During a time of rationing and far fewer toys and books than today, it was the first occasion after the Second World War that people clamoured for souvenirs of the event. For children, this included cardboard models of the Abbey and Buckingham Palace and small metal representations of the state coach and the horses. Commemorative postage stamps were also issued, and they're now treasured by collectors.
We were given a tiny little silver carriage with 4 horses, which obviously represented the coronation coach.
The girls were given handkerchiefs embroidered with E for Elizabeth, and this was at Cadishead Junior School on Lord Street. It's got the crown on it and the date of 1953. And so, of course, my mother treasured these, and that's been in a handkerchief box for 70 years now, never been out and never been used. And the 2 mugs I've got, this was the first one that we got when she was pronounced Queen. My mother just wrapped them in newspaper and put them in a cabinet, and we were never allowed to touch them. It was just after the war, obviously, and things were still being rationed, so things were that easy to acquire, so she was making sure they were preserved and well kept. This has got the picture of Charles and Anne, and that was for the coronation, the ones that we got when she was actually crowned the following year.
There was another story that made the headlines in all the newspapers that morning. 3 cricketers who were sheltering in the pavilion at the CWS Soapworks ground in Irlam, where Tesco now stands, were killed by lightning the previous evening. 2 others were seriously injured. The CWS, the initials stand for the Cooperative Wholesale Society, had been playing against an Irlam District Invitational team as part of the celebrations. Being a journalist, I'm an avid collector of so many things, and I have a newspaper published on the day of the coronation which contains all the details of the big event and an account of that disaster at the cricket match in Irlam.
I'll just finish off by wishing the Queen, you know, all the very, very best. Everybody does love her. She's had a tremendous reign and may long it continue.